Does a will make your rental properties avoid the probate process? No, all a will does is outline how you want your assets to be distributed. It does not avoid the probate process. And so when you have rental properties listed on your will, you still own those properties in your personal name. And any assets that you hold in your personal name when you pass away will have to go through the probate process before they get distributed out to your beneficiaries listed in your will. And so we're going to talk about how to avoid the probate process with your rental properties. And then we're going to talk about what the probate process looks like when you hold rental properties in your personal name, even though you have a will. So some of the different options that we have to avoid the probate process is going to be joint tenants right to survivorship, transfer on death deed, or a revocable trust. Joint tenants right to survivorship is good if you're holding that property in your personal name and you want to pass it directly down to your surviving spouse when you pass away. Typically, the way that people will co-own a property with their spouse is tenants in common. And you pass away, your half of the property will have to go through the probate process before it gets distributed out to your spouse. If you hold it as joint tenants right to survivorship, your half of the property will automatically avoid the probate process and go directly down to them. All they have to do is file a survivorship affidavit with the county clerk's office, and they will transfer your half of the property down to your surviving spouse. Other people use a transfer on death deed if they're trying to pass a property down to their kids. While you are alive, you maintain full ownership of that property and control over it, and you're listing your children as a designated beneficiary of that property. Then when you pass away, that property automatically gets distributed out to your kids and it avoids the probate process. Again, all they have to do is file a survivorship affidavit with the county clerk's office and the county where the property is located, and they will transfer that property to your children. The next option is going to be putting your rental properties directly into the revocable trust. While you're alive, you can be the trustee and maintain full control over the properties inside of that revocable trust. When you pass away, your backup trustee will step in your role as trustee. The assets will avoid the probate courts, and then they can distribute those properties out to your beneficiaries. Now, if you hold these rental properties inside of an LLC, the LLC will not avoid the probate process. Because you hold the LLC membership in your personal name, it will have to go through the probate process when you pass away. And so you can put the LLC membership inside of a revocable trust. Again, you maintain control while you are alive as the trustee, and then when you pass away, it gets distributed out to your family through that revocable trust. And then when you pass away, it avoids the probate process, and the trustee can distribute that property directly out to your family. Some of the problems you will encounter when your rental properties or the LLC goes through the probate process is that the estate owns those assets. Your family does not own those assets, meaning that your family cannot sell those properties to generate cash, and they cannot collect the cash flow from those rental properties. They also don't have any authority to manage those properties, so they cannot evict tenants, they cannot do renovations, they cannot make major improvements to it, they cannot update a roof, an HVAC system, do tenant turnovers, or anything like that. The executor has to do all of those things, and they have to get special permissions from the courts to be able to do some of those activities because they have limited authority on what they can do with those rental properties inside the estate. And so it's super beneficial that you set up your rental properties to avoid the probate process so that there's no lag in operations for that rental property. The tenants don't stop making payments. You don't have a squatter in there. You don't have a dilapidated property. You are not leaving the renovations undone, and you're not exposing yourself to lawsuits because of undone renovations. And so what the probate process looks like when you pass away with rental properties listed on a will is going to look like this. You pass away, the executor of your will grab your original will, copies of your death certificate, fill out a petition for probate, and file all three of those documents at the probate courts in the county where you passed away. Then they will do a couple things all at once. They will notify the tenants that they're taking over the property and the property is in the estate, and that the tenant should be making payments to them moving forward. They will notify the lender and give them the letters of testamentary and the death certificate and take over the mortgage payments. They will notify the insurance company that you have passed away, cancel that policy, and open up an estate policy. This is because the insurance policy covers you as the owner of that property. It does not cover the estate as the owner of that property. And when you pass away, you are no longer the owner of that property. The estate now owns that property throughout the probate process. And if you have a claim that you need to file on that property during the probate process while it's inside the estate, and the insurance provider sees that you still have the policy in your personal name, even though you've passed away, they have the right to not pay out any of those claims on that property, and it could go uncovered even though your executor is still making payments to that policy. So you need to make sure that you are actually updating your insurance policy to be one that covers the property inside of an estate. And then your executor is going to need to publicly notify creditors that you have passed away. So what they need to do is work with the probate courts to see what the instructions are, but generally it's going to be a once a week notification in the public newspaper for a 4-week period. This will be in the county where you live. Then the creditors will come to your executor and say, hey, this individual owes us money for these debts that they had with us. Then your executor beneficiary's responsibility is to pay off those debts using money inside the estate bank account or selling assets inside the estate to pay off those debts. Generally, what's going to happen is they'll use money out of the estate bank account as the first line of payments, and so they'll pay off all they can with that money inside the bank account. If there's not enough money inside the estate bank account, they have to start selling off physical assets inside the estate. So that would be things like your rental properties inside the estate. If there's not enough money or assets inside the estate to pay off all the debts, those debts will literally wipe out all of the estate before it can get distributed out to your beneficiaries. After all of the debts have been paid off, then they can distribute the remaining money and rental properties out to the beneficiaries per the instructions inside of that will. After they've made those distributions, what they're going to do is put together the final accounting. So this is going to be all the debts they paid, all the expenses they paid, all the distributions that they made related to the assets and the accounts inside of that estate. They will then file all of that accounting and the petition to discharge them as the executor of the estate with the probate courts. The probate courts will review all of that information, give it a stamp of approval or denial. When they approve it, they will close out the probate process and discharge you as the executor of the estate. If you want help making sure your rental properties will avoid probate or help with the probate process, click the link in the bio, fill out the form, and schedule a time to talk to someone on our team.